I'm sure that by now you guys have already heard about the news that's going around. And if you haven't, Los Angeles is literally up in flames. We often get these wildfires that appear on the hillside or even deep in the mountains that don't really affect the people living in the city. This is the first time in modern history that the city of LA is literally being devastated by them. I'll give you a play-by-play of what's been happening, at least from my perspective. After visiting friends and family outside of the country, I get a message to be prepared for some chaotic stuff happening in LA. Apparently a fire broke out just a couple of miles from where I live, and so I thought, well, no big deal, right? I mean, we get these fires every single year and nothing serious really happens. Wrong. This time we had some of the fiercest winds that were able to reach speeds of nearly 85 miles per hour, give or take, causing embers from these fires to spread for as far as 3 miles, lighting up every single house along its path. To give you a better idea of how bad these winds were, I was told by one of my neighbors that it sounded like people were trying to break into their house. Windows were vibrating so violently that they were surprised that they didn't even shatter. I couldn't tell you from my experience personally, since I was still waiting for my flight to go back home during this time. But I will say that while I was waiting, it seemed that each time I checked the condition of the fire nearest to me, its size kept doubling, starting at 10 acres, then 20 to 50, and so on. By the time my flight took off, just a couple of hours after first hearing about the news, that same fire just a couple of miles away from my home had reached 1,000 acres widespread. At the time of recording this, the two biggest fires closest to me are 20,000 acres and the other one being 14,000 acres big. Here's an image of one of the fires taken from a satellite to show you guys how bad the situation really is. It's really bad. Being only a couple of miles away from the nearest fire, I knew that breathing in these dangerous toxins was going to be something to be concerned about. You see, with a fire this big eating up neighborhood after neighborhood, you're not only inhaling smoke coming from burnt trees, you also have to consider that there are tons of other chemicals being emitted from these burning buildings, like plastic or, in the worst case scenario, asbestos coming from some of the older ones. Coming back from LAX was probably one of the scariest airplane moments I'd been a part of. You see, just before the plane landed, all anybody can see was a big veil of smoke. And if that doesn't give you a good enough idea of how dangerous airports are right now, here's a couple of photos that I took just before landing. These next couple of images I was able to find on Reddit of what the same fire looked like just the night before. After landing and getting back from my trip, some of the things that I was able to notice was the inability to see for more than a couple of miles just outside my door. And I guess that's a given considering that I only live a couple of miles from the nearest evacuation zone. The inside of our home still smelled okay, so I knew that my cats Chibi and Momo were for the most part still doing fine. Tired, I went to sleep but woke up with the biggest headache during the middle of the night. By this time, I saw on the internet that the air quality had reached max pollution in my area because of what direction the wind was blowing all that smoke. I wanted to tape up the cracks of the windows and doors because the smell of the smoke was getting so intense and I just knew that it was going to keep getting worse. I'm surprised that the smoke alarms didn't go off, given how thick the smoke was inside. The only problem was that I couldn't do anything because I still hadn't gotten any power back due to the outage in the neighborhood. Shortly after, the power did come back online and I was able to keep, I guess, most of the pollution out during this time. Plus, having an air purifier running full blast was, something that really helped me out a lot. When morning came, I reached out to a lot of my friends that lived in neighboring areas just to check and see if they were all okay. A few of them had no choice but to evacuate because of where they were positioned in all of this. Even with air purifiers pumping in every room, the pollution was too harsh for them to deal with. I was told about a mutual friend losing 2 houses, one that he had just bought and was going to move into next week, and another one that belonged to his sister that she was selling. To give you an even more compelling idea of how bad the situation is, another friend of mine stated having about 150 coworkers losing their homes in these fires. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, because I'm not sure exactly how much better or worse the situation will get, but I will say that for now things seem to be okay. the power is back on, so I can get back to creating content for you guys. I may be able to get back into live streaming if the pollution seems to clear up a bit more. So far, I can't go for too long without coughing due to lung irritation. I will, however, continue to at least post videos here on YouTube as long as my situation doesn't get any worse. Before I end this video, I do want to give a huge shout out to everybody that's been reaching out to me personally to see if I'm okay. I also want to mention that I will have memberships up on this channel very soon, so if you want to support me that way, you can by becoming a member. By doing so, you can flex your cool channel badge in the comment section, as well as during live streams when those start up again. And for everyone in the comments also being affected by all of this, stay safe, you guys.